Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today are our regular project management knowledge sharing called PRANKS. This is the 35th session. Today we will have Arief Prasetyo as the prominent speaker for this for tonight. And today's topic will be building your winning team with behavior engineering. Okay, for a short introduction about Mas Arief. Mas Arief Prasetyo, PMP, PMI, ACP, Discipline Agile Senior Scrum Master, is an integration project manager at Slumbersig. He is currently stationed in Saudi Arabia. He lead multiple disciplinary and multicultural teams to deliver oil wells for international energy companies. He is graduated from electrical engineering from Diponegoro University and also hold a master degree in business administration from Binus University. He has worked in 9 countries across Central America, Asia, and Middle East during his 17 years of his work, and also take various management roles from service delivery, training, operation, and project management. It seems that he also have so many free time because he volunteer for many organizations like the Society of Petroleum Engineers, IAPMI, and also Project Management Institute Indonesia as VP of Communication. Okay, before we start, there is some rules as usual. All participants will be on mute and video will be turned off in order to preserve the bandwidth. And the second one is if you have any question, feel free to put it in the chat box. The third one is that this session will be recorded and also broadcasted to YouTube. The fourth one is that each certificate will be distributed to all participants, both member or non-member, as long as you join the session through Zoom or through YouTube. You can get a certificate. And the fifth one, please wait. And the fifth one, for PMI Indonesia chapter member, video will be auto-submitted after this event. The sixth one, if you have difficulty to join the Zoom session, for example, like if the Zoom session is already full, you can watch via our YouTube channel. You can just search out for PMI Indonesia chapter. And the last one is the happy learning and give us feedback. Okay, no further ado, I will give the stage to Mas Arief. Go ahead, Mas Arief. I will stop share my screen.
All right. Thank you very much, David, for the very kind introduction. Good evening, selamat malam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, PMI Indonesia, for having me tonight. I hope that all of you today are healthy with your families, with your loved ones, and it really is a pleasure to be speaking to the Indonesian crowd, even if virtually. My name is Arief, and I work as an integration project manager at Schlumberger, an oil field service company. And today I will be sharing with you about behavior engineering and what it takes to build a winning team. But before I proceed, can you confirm if my voice is clear and my slide is showing?
Yeah, clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so just a little bit more about me. So as explained, I come from an oil and gas industry predominantly. I've worked a little bit as well in the government and the banking sector as an IT network engineer, but mostly I've been working in the energy sector. I started in Mexico, and then I worked in India, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and all the stans of Central Asia. And then I had the opportunity to work in Myanmar, Indonesia, and as well as Bangladesh. Currently, I'm working in Saudi Arabia as an integration project manager. I'm responsible for delivering oil wells to our customer here, Saudi Aramco. Outside of work, I also like to do some volunteer work for the Society of Petroleum Engineers, the Indonesian association as well, called the IAPMI, and as well as the Project Management Institute. So now that's a little bit about me. before we proceed further, if you don't mind, I will also like to have a feel of how you guys are doing. Are you happy in general? Are you okay? Could be better. It's been a tough week. Are you a little hungry, or are you almost ready for bed? So if you can, please go to the menti.com on your browsers and type in the code 25406421 and let me know how you guys are feeling. And we will be using this Menti link for the duration of the presentation. So please keep it open so that we can have some interactions throughout the session. Okay, so far looks like most of you are happy in general. I'll wait for a few more minutes just to get a bit more participation from the attendees, and so that we can have a better interaction later on. Okay, how are you guys feeling today? All right, well, it's going to be more or less another maybe 1 hour ahead of our discussion, where we will speak about teams, and we're going to talk about behavioral engineering, what it is and what it entails, and how you can implement these techniques in your projects so that you can optimize your performance. So if you are still feeling a little bit hungry, maybe it's a good time to order something from your favorite applications, or maybe go downstairs to grab a quick snack for the remainder of the session. All right, thank you very much. We can come back to this later, but I will start with a quote. Collaboration is an unnatural act between unconsenting adults, right? So nowadays, everybody is collaborating online, offline, small organizations, big organization. Collaboration is not easy. And of course, if people have the choice, they probably will not be collaborating, and instead we just do everything by ourselves. Or at least if we have to collaborate, then we collaborate only with the people that we like or the people that we know. So there is a reason why whenever you have parties or whenever you have group dinners, people tend to join, the groups that they know, the groups that they like, and that's because it's difficult, to meet and work with strangers and to collaborate with them. It's just exhausting, right? So if you are now just starting a new job, or you just enter a new team and about to embark on a new project, then please know that it's perfectly fine to feel this way. But now that you have this awareness that it's difficult, that it's out of your comfort zone, hopefully with time and little by little, you will be able to get over this and finish the mission that your teams has set. Due to the pandemic, most of our collaborations now have become a lot more complex. The distance, the time difference, the pressure to reduce the cost, and the stress the individuals are having in your teams all leads to a very complex collaborations. They usually involve cross-disciplinary team members, people with different backgrounds. It usually involves more than one organization, so that creates its own challenge. And with a large scope that requires a lot of negotiations with your client, with your stakeholders, right? You have to negotiate trade-offs. And the team members usually are diverse and multicultural. And then now with the digital transformation that's happening everywhere, then of course, you have a lot of digital interactions between your team members and your stakeholders, and you need to make decision that is based on the available data. So in this type of environments, you have all of these challenges, right? You have misalignments whenever you are working in a cross-disciplinary team. You could be working in silos. Everybody only cares about the specific thing, If I'm finance, I only care about finance. I don't really care what operation is facing. I don't really care what HR is facing, right? So those are the challenges that you have in a cross-disciplinary environment. Now, let's talk about the teams. I'm sure that all of you are currently working in a team. Maybe you are part of a team, or you used to be part of a team. What do you think is the characteristic of a winning team? So now this session will talk about how to build a winning team, but I would like to understand, in your opinion, what is the characteristic of a winning team? Ciri-ciri, right? Characteristic of a winning team. Can you please go to menti.com and use the code 25406421 and then enter what you think is the characteristic of a winning team. Wow, constructive disagreement. That is an excellent characteristic, right? So there is always going to be a disagreement, but it's not a disagreement that is hostile or aggressive, but it's a constructive one. I'll give a bit more time for everyone to enter what they think. Okay, I start to see the word trust getting bigger. A common goal is also getting more visible. There are some very good characteristic as well that you guys have put in: communicative, communication, right? It has a good collaborations, happiness. Okay, that's not too many people answer this, but I think it's also an interesting characteristic of a winning team, right? That the team members are happy. Caring, people understand their roles. It's a solid team. People work as a team. Competent, of course, and respect is also a very good characteristic to have. Okay, cooperation, completing each other. Okay, so good. We have quite a good collection of things: trust, common goal, vision, right? Respect is getting a bit a more vote, let's say. Okay, excellent, excellent. I'm very happy to see this, and I will tell you why in the next slide. So based on these characteristics that you have shared with me, I would like now to go to or to ask you another question very quickly, right? So, and I want to address this before anything else. Personalities, behaviors, and attitude of your team members. Whether intentional or not, sometimes managers, leaders, or even team members, we like to map our friends, our colleagues based on their personalities, behaviors, and attitudes. Like this one you see on the screen. That guy is the quiet one. Or that guy who's wearing a yellow shirt is slow. He's slow one. He's nice, but he's slow. And then there is always the rebellious one who is always having his own opinion. He is stubborn, or she is stubborn. And then, of course, there's also a dependable one who is always the hero, coming up with the good ideas, right? Now, these three factors: personalities, behavior, and attitude, sometimes they are blamed as a source of conflict. And in my experience, and maybe you've seen it as well in your experience, people sometimes see personalities, behavior, and attitude as a cause for poor performance. right? And because of this, because many people believe this, it sometimes can lead into a high turnover for the team members. So because this person is slow, let's replace him. Because this person is not compatible with another person, let's fire them both and bring another team member. And this can become a very expensive exercise, especially if you are employing or if you are hiring highly paid consultants or subject matter experts, right? If you are relying on these three things, then it can be an expensive exercise. Nevertheless, this practice happens in many organizations. So again, I would like to ask for your opinion. In your experience or in your current teams and your current organizations, how much do they affect your success? Personality, behavior, and attitude of your team members. Does it impact your team performance? Does it have a big impact, small impact? Can you please let me know how much in your experience this has impacted the way that you achieve the customer's goals? Okay. We have a 4.5 average score that these three things impact your team performance. Okay, let's wait in a little bit more. We have almost half of the attendees responding, which is very good. And I really appreciate your feedback, because without this interaction, then this will be a very boring one-way session, right? Okay, so it looks like we have pretty much stabilized at 4.4, which is quite high on the scale, right? That most of you strongly agree that personality, behavior, and attitude impacts your team performance. And this is a common, quite a common perception or a common understanding that it does, right? Now, on the same subject, right? We know that these three things create a lot of noise, a lot of awkwardness, a lot of discomfort, friction among your team members. But according to research, right, these three things actually are not the major contributors. They are not highly impactful to the performance of your teams or your organizations. If you are familiar with some Hollywood films like, you know, The Band of Brothers or Armageddon or any other movies that highlights team performance or a mission of a team, then you will remember that in each of these teams, there are very strong personalities. One of them may be stubborn, another one may be very dominant, another one is lazy, another one is clumsy, you know. And although they all appear to be good or bad or whatever it is, right? But in the whole context of the mission, each of them actually form an essential part of the team, right? Because each individual is multidimensional and each of them can contribute in their own personal way. Now, what this means is, of course, there is impact, right, of these three things, but there is something else beyond individual personalities that impact your team performance. There is a Harvard professor called Richard Hackman. He's a professor in social and organizational psychology. So he's conducted a research for more than 40 years on this subject about how to create a high-performing team. He concluded in one of the research, as I mentioned, that personalities, behaviors, and attitude, they don't matter as much as what's called an enabling conditions that we give to our teams. And the enabling conditions consist of three things. Number one is a compelling direction, right? Or some people, or some of you call it a common goal, right? There is a direction, there is a common goal that is clear to everyone. Number two, there is a strong structure. And number three is a supportive context. And we will talk about this a little bit deeper shortly. But one thing that we must acknowledge, though, that the state of teams nowadays has changed compared to how it was when Professor Hackman did his research some 40 years ago, right? Our teams are no longer three-dimensional or 3D, dynamic, diverse, and dispersed. Our teams, today's teams, especially after the pandemic, today's teams are 4D or four-dimensional, and the fourth dimension being digital. And this impacts the way people interact, and it impacts the way relationships are built. The longer, maybe it used to take a long time to develop trust and relationship. Now suddenly teams have to form very quickly and perform very quickly. And we are forced to trust people that we work with, even though we never meet them, right? So even though the state of the teams are now 4D, and even though the teams are slightly different now in terms of interactions, nevertheless, the enabling conditions, they remain the same. So a little bit deeper on each of these, right? And we'll start with a compelling direction. Now, in our work, we need to exert all efforts. We need to clarify the direction of the team. And from all the factors that Professor Hackman listed, I picked out the three things that I think are very important, right? So right now, if you are part of the team, and this is a question that you don't have to answer interactively, you can just reflect upon yourselves. If you are leading a team, or if you are part of the team, is the direction of your team clear on a scale of 1 to 5, right? Is it clear? And if the direction is clear, is it challenging for the team or not? Because if the goal is too low-hanging or too easy, it will not inspire your team members. It will not spark any enthusiasm. If somebody is going to be a part of your team for 2 years, at the end of these 2 years, is it going to be something that your team member, he or she, can be proud of? Or is it too easy? So your direction needs to be clear, but also challenging. Now, the third aspect is consequences. And they need to be made clear to your team members. The consequences need to be a mix of something that is soon and certain, and also a consequence which is, okay, maybe later this will happen, maybe it will not happen. And we will, when we later talk about behavior engineering, I will explain a little bit more about what I mean by soon and certain consequences. But for now, just understand that it's very important for us to communicate these consequences and how we explain it to our team members. And this will play an important role in the way that they behave to your directions. Okay, so based on these three things, if you reflect and you score 15, 5 stars.
Bonekanya, minum obat.
Sorry, we have somebody unmuted. Okay, so if you score 15 on all of this, 5 in the direction is clear, 5 in the challenging, and 5 in the consequences, then you are very lucky to be leading what I think should be a very strong team, right? And if you are part of a team with a direction that is clear and it's challenging, and you understand your role, your consequences, the consequences of your actions, then I think you are in a good place. But if you are not, right, if you only score, for example, 9 out of the 15 or maybe less, then I would suggest it's probably a good time to refresh. Speak to your managers, your sponsors maybe, or consult your documents to really understand what is the goal of your team, what is that direction, right? What is important for your team? What is the consequences of your role if you do a good job or if you do a bad job? The second aspect of the enabling factors or the enabling conditions is a strong structure. A strong structure is basically what the word means, right? A structure is the team itself. How many people do you have in your team? Is it enough? Do you have enough skill set? Do you have enough experienced people? Because having too many people in the team, it could be counterproductive, right? Because maybe there is not enough work for everyone and people will be, you know, too relaxing, too much time in their hands. But more than the physical aspect of the team, right? A structure is also the glue that puts the bricks together, right? So when your teams are working, you need to consider who is working with who is talking to whom, how often do they communicate? You need to try as much as possible. There in the slide I put here, design of work. If possible, design the work of your team members so that you know who is interacting with whom, and if possible, you foster the collaboration among your team members. And then you also have norms in the Western world, in Europe, in North America. Maybe norms are in an organization is written, but for us in Indonesia or in Asia in general, many norms are unwritten. You have you know, politeness, you have cultures that are different between one area to the other. Some practices that is considered normal may not be in other cultures, right? So this is something that you need to design for your teams so that they have a strong interaction and so that the structure is also strong. But there is one thing that I want to underline here. Designing work, it is different with creating access restrictions or approval chains, right? These are, if they are not, you know, entirely necessary, if you put too many of these, then these become roadblocks. So instead of designing work, you are designing roadblocks, and that's not that's not what we want to do. So the same here, right? Out of these 5 stars for the 3 questions, try to reflect for yourself how you think your teams are performing. Is everyone contributing? Do people adhere to processes and norms? And do you have a good mix of experience and skills in your teams? If you don't, again, maybe it's a good time to reassign people for different jobs, to change the way you work, and so on, right? Because a strong structure is essential to the success of your team. The third enabling condition is a supportive context. And what I mean by this is the positive atmosphere that you create every day for your teams. When your teams wake up in the morning, do you think they are excited to come to work and meet with the team members? Are they pumped up because the work environment is so nice that they are able to make friends and they are able to trust and rely on one another? Are they comfortable to face failures, right? Because many teams, they perform very well from day one. Let's say you have a successful team, success after success after success, and then they have one failure, and this can completely demoralize the team, and suddenly your team is not the same anymore. So as a leader, as a team manager, or a team or whatever you call it, right, whether you manage or you lead, you need to maintain a supportive context. People need to feel comfortable when they make mistakes, and people need to be given second chances to prove themselves, maybe a third chance, fourth chance, right? Are you removing distractions? Okay, many people, many leaders are very quick to judge. This person he's not motivated. He's lacking motivation. Most of the time, and this is also based on research, most of the time, the problem is not with motivation. The problem is with structure, with technology access. If a person cannot send their report because of a poor network connectivity, this has nothing to do with his motivation. And the solution shouldn't be to fix his motivation, to find a solution, how maybe he needs to go to an internet cafe and so on. The fix to the problem is you need to upgrade or improve the network connectivity, right? So motivation is like often used as a shortcut, to put the burden on the employee, but this is not the case. Most of the time, it is management systems, and it is the way that we empower our teams with technology, with data, and also to remove distractions, right? Especially during this pandemic, everybody is distracted with something. Everybody. It could be a pay cut. It could be somebody who has a family issue at home. Somehow we need to find a way to remove the distractions. Can we modify their working schedule? Can we allow them to work permanently on a flexible schedule, right? So that's a supportive context that you have to provide to your teams. Do you have a recognition program? Are you removing the distractions? And are you giving them access to the data that you have? Okay, because having access to data will enable your teams to understand better the consequences of their actions, as well as how to improve the project. Without data, everybody is just using their own perceptions. Okay, so to summarize again what we've discussed, the first portion of the building a winning team, right? Personalities, behaviors, attitudes, yes, they are important, but they should not be the focus of your strategy. The strategy for all team leaders should be how to make it clear to your teams what is the direction, what is the priority, what is or how to set up a strong structure, what type of support do your teams need? Is it a technical aspect? Is it the quality aspect? Is it related to human resources? What is the structure that you need so that you can provide a supportive context, so that you can better remove these distractions? Okay, multitasking and all of this can be overused and abused in many organizations. And one way to tackle that is by having clear roles and responsibilities, right? So that you can provide a supportive context using a strong structure for your teams. So these are the three enabling factors I hope that you can explore them more in your organizations and in your teams, and how you can improve it so that you can achieve a better performance. So in teams, in organizations, we've talked about personalities, we've talked about these enabling conditions, but there is also one thing that we didn't talk about, but it's always there in every team member's mind. And that is the question of money and financial incentives. Many people think that money affects behaviors. Many people think that money is a strong motivator. So where does it fit into play? Other people say it's not important. Other people say they don't work for money, they work for passion, right? Nowadays, passion is a very big word among the younger generation. We don't care how much we get paid as long as we are doing our passion. So what do you think? The fact is, CEOs, they are still being rewarded money. Even when they resign, even when they get terminated, they get, money. So now, please let me know what you think. And I'm asking two questions here. One is for yourself. Does money affect your performance? And the second question is, does money affect your team's performance? Do you think that your team is affected by money as a collective entity? Does the team affect you as an individual, or does it affect the team more? Let me know, please. For those who maybe have joined a little bit later, kindly go to menti.com and use the code 25406421 and let me know, what do you think about money? How does it affect your performance? Do you disagree, or do you agree that it affects both you and your teams? The Menti ID is 25406421. I'll wait just a little bit more so that I get a bit more feedback on the question of money. All right. So thank you very much for your interaction, right? It's awesome. So I have almost half of the attendees reacting. So we can say here that money both affects individual performance, you and me, and it also affects the team performance. And based on what you have answered here, it says that money affects the team more than it affects the individual. And this is a very a good response and a common response, right? And sometimes individually, maybe we don't need the money. Maybe sometimes we are even willing to spend money for our team members, our own money. I've had so many bosses, so many managers who, take us all out for a nice dinner, or they buy us some nice gifts using their own money. So why does he do that? It's to incentivize the team, right? And you are right that money affects the team more. Somehow the reward is much better when it's achieved or when it's enjoyed by the entire team, right? It's more than just an individual thing. So money definitely can affect performance, and it can affect the team's performance. But the question is, how does it impact, right? Is it a positive impact or is it a negative impact? There are some misconceptions or common misconceptions about money. And here are 3 of them. First and foremost, many people think that money motivates people. The second is that money will improve work quality. If you give somebody money, their quality of work will improve. That is a misconception. And in many places, people believe money solves everything. Now, I think most of us here, if not all of us, believe, the last 2 we know is a misconception, is a clear misconception, right? Money does not, it does not mean an improved work quality. Money also doesn't mean that it will solve everything, right? Nevertheless, we still see many money throwing practices in many organizations, right? Does it motivate people? That's what I want to dig a bit deeper on. Does money really motivate people? Well, it does, but it's not a long-term solution to motivation. And the reason is because of the law of diminishing returns. The law of diminishing returns means that when you give money or when you offer money to people, you may see an increase in quality, you may see an increase in productivity, but only for a short period of time. At some point, the quality and productivity of this person or this team, at some point, will be flat. It cannot improve anymore. Even if you give 5 times, 10 times the amount of money, the performance will not increase 10 times. And that is the law of diminishing returns. So that's the first aspect of why money doesn't motivate people. The second part of it is money or financial incentive is like a drug. It's addictive and the tolerance keeps increasing and increasing. If today you are happy with $200 bonus because you did a good job, next year, if you do a good job and you get another $250, even with a $50 increase, you may not be happy. People may not be happy. And what happens then when people stop valuing this money? Then money no longer becomes a motivator and it becomes a demotivator. And that's the last thing you want to improve your team performance. Instead of having a positive impact, money actually starts to have a negative impact to your teams. Okay. Now, so I covered quite a few things before I enter behavior engineering, because when we talk about behavior, I just want to clarify that I'm not going to talk about money. I'm not going to talk about individual personality and individual behavior and all of these things, because we've already established, based on research and based on your understanding as well, that although it impacts your teams, there are bigger things that you can do to improve the way they work. So when I talk about behavior engineering, we are going to talk about, well, first of all, the scientific term for behavior engineering is actually applied behavioral science. And it states that human behavior is not random. And because human behavior is not random, it can be observed, it can be measured, it can be controlled, and it can be predicted even. So using some of the behavioral engineering techniques, we can get our team members to hopefully behave a certain way to perform better as a team. So now we enter the topic of behavior engineering. I would like to take a step back, maybe a few steps back, to the 1940s during the World War II. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Project Orcon, but for those of you who are not familiar, Project Orcon was a top secret project which is conducted by the United States during the World War II. And it was headed by a person called B.F. Skinner. He is a behavioral scientist. So he spent his career watching and observing animal behaviors. And he developed a theory that animals' behavior can be engineered or can be influenced to behave a certain way. So during the World War, B.F. Skinner and the Department of Defense and the CIA actually, they granted an award of $25,000 to B.F. Skinner. And $25,000 in the 1940s is equivalent to around $400,000 or about 4 billion rupiah in today's money. So what was his mission, or what was his task? What was Project Orcon? Project Orcon is a pigeon-guided missile system. And the principle is very easy, it's very straightforward. So he used pigeons to peck, to mamatok, to peck a certain object in front of the pigeon. And every time the pigeon pecks the right target, the right position, then automatically some bird feed or a snack will be dispensed from the system. So it's like a reward system for the bird. If the bird is able to peck at the correct point, then the snack will come and the bird will repeat it again so that he keeps eating. So based on this idea, what he did was he put a pigeon in a chamber. You can see the chambers here on the left, right? And these chambers have a glass front for the pigeon to see the objects, or in this case, it is a target. The example you see here on these two images is the head of the pigeon. And this is an image of a battleship. So the idea is the pigeon will see this battleship, it will peck on the battleship, and using 3 pigeons, the electronic system will then triangulate the location and normalize the target as the center of the missile. And that way, the missile will be guided by the pigeons to hit the exact target. So instead of relying on intelligence or information from the secret agents that the target will be here and there, and sometimes the secret agents are becoming double agents and giving false information. To avoid all of this, they used pigeons who cannot be turned as a double agent, and these pigeons will guide the missile straight to the heart of the enemy. The project, by the way, was very successful. The missiles were able to hit certain targets. But unfortunately, the war ended before Skinner ever saw this invention implemented. So for you who are animal lovers, you don't have to worry. There were no pigeons that were hurt in this experiment. So that's Project Orcon, and that gave basically the birth of, behavioral engineering and all of this for applied behavioral science. So what does this theory mean? What does it entail? Behavior engineering is how we engineer people's behavior using 2 aspects. One is antecedents and another one is consequences. based on the study, we know that a person's behavior is a result of an infinite loop between antecedents and consequences. Antecedents are activities, conditions, situations that exist right there. So for example, if now I have to make a decision about something, my antecedents will be maybe the brightness of the room that I'm in, maybe the condition of my throat, because I've been talking now for almost maybe 30 minutes. So these are all antecedents. And now I'm talking to a group of professionals. These are all antecedents that will affect the way I behave. The second aspect which will affect my behavior is the consequences. My understanding of my consequences. And the understanding of consequences, it can be because I experienced it before. For example, if I present it a certain way, then the audience will react in such a way. So based on that knowledge, I know what is the consequence of behaving a certain way. But if a person never experienced it before, or he doesn't know the consequence of his behavior, then he will rely on information. He will rely on what his friends tell him. He will rely on what the signs say, what the manual says, right? He will rely on maybe if somebody got terminated from the company because of any ethical misconduct, then he will know, even though he didn't experience it, he knows that if he performs corruption, for example, or if he acts in a conflict of interest, he knows that there is bad consequences, right? And that will impact the behavior. So the understanding of a consequence will impact somebody's behavior. I will talk a little bit more about these consequences and how we can modify and influence the behaviors based on how we explain consequences. So now let's take it back to your projects, right? I don't want to give a specific example, although in my company, in Schlumberger, we actually have an organization dedicated to behavioral engineering methodology. And we use these techniques to make our rig field operations become safer. We engineer their behaviors whenever they have to make a mechanical lifting, heavy lifting using cranes. We engineer their behaviors. Whenever they want to drill using manual equipments, we engineer where they stand, who interacts, and so on. So in your teams, you can also do this. No matter if your project is in construction or in IT, you will interact with people. So in your workflow, try to define and try to analyze which workflows or which processes is human dependent. Where is the process that you have a lot of human errors, maybe, right? Where is the process that if you have a team that is not performing well, it will impact the entire project? And then before you do anything, before you start planning your strategy on how you want to engineer your project and so on, first you determine your benchmark, set your baseline before the intervention. So how are you doing now? So for example, I work in a predominantly waterfall project, right? We do have some kind of agility here and there when we make the planning stage, iterations during risk assessments and so on. But in terms of the entire scheme of the project, it's a waterfall project. We construct oil wells. So if you want to complete a certain work activity, then the easiest benchmark is how fast can you do it, right? Before you do anything right now, how fast can you do it? 3 days, 4 days? Okay. If 4 days is your benchmark or your baseline, then from then you can start to think about how you improve this activity to make it maybe shorter or more productive. And from there, you can start your preliminary intervention strategy. The one thing that you can also exploit, right, is high frequency activities. There is a reason why, in this example, I feature a Formula One team during a pit stop. There is a reason why these pit stop technicians or engineers, they perform things very quickly, amazingly quickly. And the only way to become very competent and high performing during these activities, repetitive activities, is to make them repeat over and over and over again. In Schlumberger, in one of our business line, which is cementing, one of the ways that we did this in the US was they took a team of operators who prepare a cementing unit, and they took the benchmark. How long does it take to prepare a cement unit? Starting from when the cement unit arrives from the truck, you lift it from the truck, put it on the ground, set it up, test it, and then it's ready for use. They make a benchmark of the best team that they have, the very best team that they have, and then they use it as a benchmark. And then they take a different team. They take them in a different location, and they ask this team to mimic, to make the exact same steps as this best team that was before. And they told them to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat all over again. Within 5 days, this team, which is assembled from different places, within 5 days, this team was able to achieve the same performance as the best team that the location has within 5 days. So after that, we didn't stop there. We then asked this team, the new team, because the best team, they did it this way for many, many years. This is the only way they know how to do it. With the new team, after they perform their best, after 1 week, after 5 days, we asked them, how can you do this better? One person gave an idea, oh, we need a different type of wrench. Another person gave an idea, we need to modify the layout of the cement unit. This hose maybe needs to be this type of connection and not a different kind. After making small adjustments and equipping them and enabling them with different tools, this team, within the coming few days, was able to beat the best performing team. And this is how you engineer people's behavior, right? Instead of people coming, so there's two aspects here. One aspect is for high frequency activities. If your project has an activity which is high frequency, everybody is performing it over and over again, then the next thing to do is to exploit it. If the best person is only one person right now, can you make all the other 10 persons be the same as this person? If only one team is performing, can the rest of the 4 teams do the same by way of repetition? Repeating and repeating and repeating and creating muscle memory. And then with a new, fresh set of eyes, what can they improve? Enable them with more tools. And then once you have 4 teams performing together, once you have 4 teams doing the best, what is the next thing to do? You create a competition. You visualize their performance. You incentivize their performance. You say, well done, Group A, you are the best performer of Q3, and then you're going to increase even more performance. Because incentive, like we said in our survey, financial incentive or any other incentive impacts the team more than the individual. If you want to reward performance, reward it to the team. It's important to highlight successful individuals. It's very important for role models and so on, and to appreciate extraordinary efforts. But it's more important to appreciate your team, to reward and incentivize your team. Okay, and then you create a healthy competition. And on the next slide, I have some examples, right? Before we go into the interventions, the ones on the right here are some of the things that you can do, you know, which is basically dashboarding. Nowadays, you have Power BI, you have many tools to create your own dashboards to measure the success of your teams. If you are a student, if you are working in a university as a lecturer or as a professor, you can dashboard your students, you can dashboard your teams and create this learning or performance learning, let's say. It's not learning just for learning, but it's performance learning, so that people want to learn, people want to perform in learning, right? So you can do some dashboarding, you can do the speedometer style dashboarding, which is very good to give real-time feedback. So, and now I want to tie this into the discussion of interventions or consequences. So consequences is very important because people will react based on consequences. Yeah. Do you ever think about why it is so difficult to make people stop smoking? No matter how many pictures you put in the cigarette box, you know, in some cigarette box, you put a picture of a lung which is very black and disgusting. You put very big warnings of lung cancer, impotency, cancer, whatever, all the nasty consequences of smoking. Why are people still smoking? Because the consequences is not soon and is not certain. If you explain to people, don't smoke. Why? Because you will get lung cancer. He will not get lung cancer now. He will not get lung cancer tomorrow. If you say he will die because of smoking, he will not die because of, he will not die the moment he smokes his first puff. And this is why it's so difficult to get people to stop, because the consequences that we throw to these people are not soon and certain. Maybe I will die, maybe I will not. Maybe I will get lung cancer, maybe I will not. You cannot trigger behavior change using long-term consequences. And that's a fact. I know that we have in our organizations 5-year plans, 10-year plans, and 10-year consequences, 5-year consequences. Those are good to have, but they are not very effective if you want to make immediate change to people's behavior. Yeah. The same with the stop sign. You put a stop sign on the street, people will stop. Put a policeman next to it, people will not stop. Why? Because of consequences. Stop signs, okay, maybe there is a camera, maybe I will be fined, maybe I will not. You put a policeman there, maybe this guy will stop me and fine me. Maybe I have to go to court, maybe I have to pay a penalty. Consequences, which is soon and certain, are the best. and you need to give it in a timely manner. And this type of dashboards, like this speedometer, this is an example of a soon and certain feedback. If somebody is driving and they see a speed limit like this, and if it beeps, then they will react. They will do this, right? And the same with your teams. When you make dashboards for your team and it's visual, and during the day, if it's short term, they can see the speed and they can adjust, they will, guaranteed. Now, there are also feedbacks that can be given after a longer period of time, like maybe daily, weekly, and so on. And these feedbacks, they are a very effective way to engineer or to modify or to influence your team members' behavior. Okay, so the next thing you have to do, once you see people reacting, once you see people are changing their behaviors, you need to recognize good behaviors, acknowledge them, right? Publish the success stories. You need to empower the team members, give them the correct tools that they need. Give them the empowerment to criticize their boss, their management. Give them the freedom to define the way they work, right? Do they have to come to office every day? Maybe not. Maybe they are more efficient, working in their own space at home. This is another type of, influencing and engineering people's behavior. So again, you need to try to see and try to understand in your critical workflows, which consequences can you use to modify or to engineer your team's behavior. It can be using dashboards, to remind them of the consequences, to visualize the consequence. They are very effective. It can be signs. Signs can be effective depending on what you put there. Caution, hot surface, do not touch. This is quite effective. The moment you touch it, he will think it's going to be very hot. Another effective campaign which you see in many shops or property or developers, they put a big poster. Prices will increase 1st January. This is also a way of influencing people's behavior, right? Getting them to buy, to act now, soon and certain. There is a certainty. 1st of January, if I don't buy this property, the price will increase. So if your feedback is soon and certain, you will have a good chance of engineering or modifying their behavior. Okay, so now I'm coming to the end of this presentation. Actually, this is pretty much what I have to share with you on behavior engineering, but I would like to close with one last exercise. Okay, this is a behavior engineering exercise. So you know that nowadays people are becoming more and more aware of their health. Everybody wants to stay as healthy as possible, as fit as possible. And one of the ways to do this is to take the stairs instead of the escalator or the elevator. So how do you get people to use the healthier option? And I don't want you to say, disable the elevator. No, no, no. This is enforcement. This is also behavior engineering, but it's not the way that we want to do to our team members. How can you get people to use the healthier option? And please give me some ideas that you think is effective to make people use the stairs. You can answer in English or in Indonesian, I don't mind. If you feel more comfortable, you can also write in Indonesian, that's fine. But just on top of your head, based on what we've discussed about behavior engineering, how can you make more people use the stairway and not the escalators? I'll give a few. Be a role model. Okay, put interesting picture on the stairs. Very good. Sedia toko di tangga, or having shops in the stairway. Make the escalator run very slowly. Slower than people walking. Fantastic. This is an excellent idea. Put the number of calories you could burn per step on each of the stairs. Okay, this is also excellent. Many people now are very aware of how many calories they eat and how many calories they burn. Employ pretty ladies to invite people using stairs. Hey, come on. What about the handsome men also, right? Not just the ladies. Make the stairs down when using it, okay? Put visible motivational sign on the available space. Shut down the escalator, okay? Paint it like a piano. Very good. Singing stairs, okay. Use posters. Advise them that it will get them a toned body. Give coupons. Okay. Set the escalator sometimes to not working. So very good. So now I would like to close with the one video, and the video is answering the question that I gave to you earlier, and some of you got it right. And it is, you know, painting the stairs to make it look like a piano, but also look at what happens when they do that, and look at what type of change they make to the stairs. Let me just check if my sound is sharing. Okay. Okay, so that was the Volkswagen campaign on fun theory. It is not the only thing that Volkswagen did. They also did a few other things, like how to make everyone disciplined to cross the road using pedestrian crossing. They also made a garbage can, which is like an eternity garbage can, so that people will throw their trash into the garbage more often. So I would strongly encourage that if you haven't seen them, go and check out their videos. It's very very interesting, and I hope this session has inspired you a little bit, at least, to explore ways on, you know, how to improve the way your teams work and interact with each other, and eventually perform better by using behavior engineering techniques. Thank you very much for having me, and now back to you, David.
Hello, thank you, Arief. I think you're too humble to say just slightly influence. I think you have I think you bring a great influence for most of us here. Even though maybe the sample from the piano is quite common, because most of the audience can guess it already, right? Okay, so there is a question from Afiana here. Actually, I don't know, is this he or she? Maybe he. For sake, I just say he or she asked that how to respond people who fail because of the wrong attitude and behavior.
How to respond to people who failed from their attitude and behavior?
Yeah, people who fail because of the wrong attitude and behavior. What should we do with that kind of people?
Okay, so basically, when I say that the behaviors and personalities, they don't matter as much in the performance of the team, I don't mean that bad behaviors are tolerated, right? So in one of the aspects that I mentioned in creating a strong structure and providing a supporting context, there is what's called norms. So norms are established agreements, whether it's written or unwritten, and these need to be respected. So for example, coming late to a meeting, if this behavior is tolerated, then it's not a supportive context, right? So you still have to commit to what is your commitment with the team, whether it's written or not, and behaviors that go against that need to be treated, right? If there is a punishment, maybe a coin that they have to put in, or maybe a red card or reward, some kind of a reward punishment system needs to be in place so that the message here is that bad behavior is not tolerated. But the context that I was giving by saying personality and behavior, it doesn't matter. It means like, especially when you are building a team, when you are starting a team, right? Don't focus so much on what people say about that guy is slow, that guy is good, that guy is friendly, that guy has good lobbying skills, and so on. Because all of this doesn't matter as much as the homework that you have to do to create your structure, your direction, and also your supportive context.
Okay, great as well. And this is the second question, also from Afiana Hari. How try not to become a man of success, but become a man of value?
Wow, this is very philosophical. Well, how to not become a man of success, but a man of value? Why not become a man of both, right? If we can. Of course, it comes down to principles, right? So everybody needs to draw their line on what is principle for them based on what you believe to be your value. It can be from your family, it could be from your religion, your cultural background, or anything, right? So those values you need to stand up for, and I think if you work in a team long enough, then you should by now be showing your natural colors, which are basically a reflection of your values, right? So I think how do you do that? Then you just become true to yourself and stick to your value, right? Because the definition of success is defined only by you. And if you choose value over money and over prestige and so on, then that's the only way to do it.
Okay, great. And the next question from Yusaya Eka Prasetya. How do you think the behavior plan in this pandemic circumstances, especially working in virtual team, right?
This is I think everyone is going through the same, right? Everybody is becoming a different person during a pandemic, yeah, and it's not for a simple reason. It's a difficult time for everyone. So behavior of individuals, honestly, they change. At least I can speak for the teams that I work with. But the behavior of the team as a collective entity, I think it has improved, because somehow the pandemic, even though it's difficult for us individually, many of us caught the COVID. Many of us lost loved ones because of the COVID. But somehow there is a sense of togetherness, Dave, right? So we are like in this thing together. You know, if the whole company is going through a pay cut, everybody needs to reduce their salary. Everybody is going through the same thing, and everybody believe in the importance of surviving in the company. Also, maybe as a team, you need to create that common enemy. So if your enemy is, you know, getting your project terminated because of value, because of performance, then your common enemy or your common goal should be to successfully deliver the project. And that's a very strong driver for everyone to perform. Does that answer, Dave?
Yes, great. And the next question is from Danisa Smoko, related with your presentation regarding with the F1 car, right? So can the competition between teams in our organization is actually, with prize money is actually increase the quality of the company, or is actually create unhealthy and chaos in the organization?
Yes, so it can do both. Like I said, we will never get rid of money. Many people see it as a boost, and if you use it correctly, it's very effective, right? For certain teams, for certain environments, these are very effective. For teams who are on the ground level, for example, all they do is, for example, they don't take part in the business aspect, in the strategy aspect, in the planning aspect, then maybe instant money. Like if you do a good job, in my case, if we deliver a good well, an oil well is constructed in a very short period of time, a money boost or an incentive is very effective to get them to compete and achieve this reward. But for the different group of people who are more concerned with you know, strategy and business development and things like that, maybe there is other ambitions that they want. You know, maybe there is career progression, maybe there is the visibility or recognition at the higher level and things like that. And those rewards, we need to make a balance, and we need to understand which incentive is going to be the most effective for each team or each person. Yeah, so it will not, I don't think it will create chaos in the organization. It certainly can increase the quality and the performance, and we see this in many organizations.
Okay, great. So see, in the end, we need to understand what will be the motivation factor and when we will use it, right? Okay, great. Okay, the next question from Syam Tawakal. What do you think how the behavior engineering implemented in the complex environment?
Yeah, so complex environment, in terms of, you know, what I had presented earlier, there are many reasons why a project or an environment can be considered complex. So I will give you one example here. I worked in a project where we had a different combination of people working in different locations. I was in Indonesia, another person was in Malaysia, another one was in the US, and so on. So and they all had different backgrounds. We never met each other. And then when we come together for the first time, it's not easy, right? Because of sometimes it's the experience gap. Sometimes people feel intimidated and so on. So one of the ways to engineer the behavior, like for example, if you have people say compatibility problem between one person and another, and the solution is to replace, to make it more compatible. Actually, we can go the opposite direction. Here in Saudi, for example, we often have strong constructive disagreements between the engineering department and the operations department, the people who plan the wells and the people who execute the plan. There's always a big disagreement, and sometimes it can be very you know, exciting to see, like it's the end of the world when they argue and debate. But you know, things started to improve. We used to have an office for each of these people. One person from operation gets one office, another person from engineering has one office. So what we did, we put them together in one room. And in the beginning, it was not good. People complained. But after a while, you know, the problems started becoming less. The arguments started becoming less, because whatever arguments they had, they already had it face to face in their offices. And when it comes to the meetings, everybody is a little bit more aligned. And then only the big things we need to decide. So you can do many things to engineer people's behavior, and by putting people in front of each other, you know, there is a quote I remember, that people tend to write what they don't dare to say. So you will be more aggressive if you are on emails or in chats, but if you are face to face, usually people are more civilized, and you know, the tension becomes de-escalated. So these are some of the examples.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the question keep coming. We will limit to the next big question. Yeah. Okay. The next one is a tricky question from Fajar Nurgifari Asis. So basically, his question is how to implement the behavior engineering to your own boss.
How do you engineer behavior of your own boss?
Yes.
Wow, gosh, that's a very good question. But I think we all do it. All, you know, all project managers do it. All team leaders do it, and it's part of communication skills, and it's part of your stakeholder engagement strategies. You know how to handle certain people based on their personalities, based on their expectations. And so, for example, the basic example of this would be to set the right expectation, right? If you think that a job is going to be completed, or if you're in the middle of, for example, you know, you are in the middle of a crisis, there is an emergency, somebody got hurt on the field, and you are now doing evacuations for him, medical evacuations, and he's on the way to the hospital. Normally, this type of incidents, they get the management very worked up and very nervous. So, and everybody's asking for feedback every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, and everybody's from different direction attacking you and asking you 20 questions. So you can modify this behavior by, for example, proactively sending an alert, right, through an SMS or whatever communication channel you have established. And then at the end of it, you will say that the next update will come after 40 minutes. And then you will still have 1 or 2 managers who will call you, or your boss will still call you and ask for details after 5 minutes. You will still have those type of people. But if out of the 10 people you have to manage, not 10 of them will be bothering you. Some of them will be reading those 40 minutes updates and will be respecting you to, you know, take the time and give the timely updates as you need to. So that's one of the examples, but I think we do this quite often. If you manage projects and you have to handle people above.
Okay, the next one is how to emphasize behavior engineering to a skeptical person.
Don't explain it.
Don't explain.
You know, don't explain it. So don't tell them you are trying to engineer their behavior. No. Then they will feel that they are objectified, right? But what we do, look, in Schlumberger at least, right? We show them the results, okay? And the results speak louder than any presentations and any words. Yeah. So if you make a very big campaign in the beginning that we are going to do this behavior engineering campaign, you will get so many skepticism. So what we did in Schlumberger, the behavioral engineering team used to consist of only less than 10 people. It was trained, they were trained, they went to Nevada for a course and analysis what critical behaviors we want to change from the field people. And then they set a pilot project, one in Ecuador and another one in, I believe, in Mexico. So they did a pilot project in 2 locations. And they clarified what is the critical behavior they want to influence and what is the KPI that they want to influence. And after 6 months, they got the results. Once you have the results, it's much easier to sell it to the people who are skeptical or even to the people who don't know, right? And then you just have to keep piloting in different places. And of course, you're going to get a lot of lessons learned from different places, and you're going to keep improving the way that you implement this behavioral engineering techniques.
Okay. The next one is actually not a question, and you already share a lot of your experience. But do you want to add some of your personal experience in behavior engineering with you think produce the best result other than you already told us earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the bottom line is, you know, I think behavioral engineering techniques, many things you can do on the fly, right? On a daily basis, you can modify the way that people engage and people behave. But when it comes to your teams and when it comes to your organization, and if it's an important performance, then you need to make it visible, right? Make sure that you somehow dashboard this. And the dashboards need to comprise of a short-term consequence feedback, a medium-term, and a long-term. So your people need to see, our people need to see how they did every day, even if it's just one KPI, even if it's just one speedometer. They need to know in one day what was the feedback. And it has to be right that day, because then he will still remember what he did that day, and he can reflect what he can do to improve. Very similar to your retrospectives, right? And understanding what you achieved and what you didn't achieve and how you can do better. You need to have those feedbacks, and it would be a lot better if they were visualized, if it was in a dashboard or if it was in some form of a report at least, right? And if it's visualized, then you have the medium term also visualized, and then the longer term, the yearly targets, how you are, you know, a progress bar chart or something. Those type of reports can be a good, soon and certain consequence.
Okay, the last question from Mahfuz Amri. So basically the question is how to get an instant result if you are a project manager who is assigned to assisting a project which already have a project team work together and you just assign there.
Being a team member, you mean?
No,
or
if you're a project manager who is assigned to assisting project.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've been in this shoe a few times, right? Even the current job that I'm in now, I walk into a project with a very challenging objective with an existing team already there. So you need to do your homework, right? You still have to pay attention or take note of what was passed on to you by the previous project manager or by the teams. But in the end, we somehow need to understand on an individual level, if possible, of your team members. And again, focus on those 3 things, on the 3 enabling factors, right? Ask yourself, do you have clear direction? Is it clear for you? Usually it's very clear for the team, but because you are new, you are not very clear what is the direction of this project, what is the direction of this team. So clarify the direction, make sure it's compelling, make sure it's challenging and strong. And then after that, the second thing is, again, look at your structure. Do you have enough people? Do you need more people? Do you have other people supporting your team? And then the third is provide a supportive context, right? So out of the 3, the most important one, based on surveys that I've done during these type of webinars, out of these 3 enabling factors, the most important thing is usually people choose structure. And the people who are doing the survey I don't tell them which, which category it is, structure or supportive context or not, but usually the things that they think is important relates to structure. And then, although the most important thing is structure, how to settle in and how to get your team to quickly work is actually your supportive context. When you come as a new person, many people will be worried. What is this person like? Some people will even be threatened depending on your history with him or her. And so it's important to provide a supportive context to say that you are new. You are here to learn from the existing team. We are here to improve. We are not to make radical changes. And then you take it from there and you build your own story and rapport with them. And then you start working on the other two.
Okay, great. Okay, that's the end of the question. I apologize
Thank you
for
very
the
much.
question which not answered yet. Okay, thank you, Arief, for provide us
Thank you very much, Dave.
session. Before we close the session, as usual, we will have a photo session. Please turn on your camera, please. Yeah, because Mas Arief will need this to
switch on your cameras
to be published in bulletin, right? Yeah, Mas Arief. By the way, last question from me: do you implement this behavior engineering to your team in PMI Indonesia chapter?
In PMI Indonesia chapter? Oh, this is a secret. You can ask the team if they feel engineered or not.
Yeah, because your team is one of the most productive team in PMI.
Yeah, I have an excellent team in the chapter. Very very engaging, very proactive.
Okay, I will start capturing the screen. There is four page. Open the first page.
Jeez.
Okay, done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you in the next Pranks.
Thanks, Mas Arief. Thanks, Mas.
Thank you, Arief.
Thank you, PMI.
Thank you.